Okay, match number 1 with Green Red Madness. On the draw, and we only have 1 land. And it doesn't look great for us. We can't really do anything with 1 land. We can Lightning Axe or Lightning Bolt. Best thing we can do is draw another land and play Wild Mongrel turn 2. And then hopefully curve that into Arrogant Worm turn 3, but this seems a little bit greedy. I think I'm going to mulligan this hand. Alright, this is a lot better, I think. No discard outlets, but we'll hit our land drops at least. And we can ship this mountain. Alright. Next turn we can Tormenting Voice, discarding a Root Wallet and casting it. Or if we really need to, we can go Lightning Bolt plus Hardcast Root Wallet. Two islands and a ponder are probably facing Mono Blue Delver. They choose to not shuffle their library. Alright. Hopefully we don't get Force Spiked here. Although if they do, then they can only counter one or the other, since Root Wallet and Tormenting Voice are going to be 2 separate spells. Alright, that worked. We also drew our 3rd land, which is obviously good. Opponent is pondering again. They once again do not shuffle. And they simply pass a turn. Alright. Here, I believe I'm going to pump to force them to do something. Maybe if they have a bounce spell or something, they can try to bounce this back to my hand, which means that the Insolent Neonate will resolve. Alright, here I am going to give them the opportunity to counter this. They can spell stutter it, they can counter spell it. I can't just not cast it forever, so. Alright, there's the spell stutter. I could also have potentially not pumped the Root Wallet and then had mana up to Lightning Bolt to spell stutter in response, but I wasn't positive they were on Mono Blue Delver yet. They could have also been on the hard counterspell version and just not had their black mana yet and be playing Dimir Teachings, so I think that was an okay play still. Alright, they play a Fairy Miscreant and pass the turn. Here I'm going to choose to develop the board over pumping. Preordain goes bottom and top with the scry. We need to watch out for that Spire Golem that's eventually going to come down, because that could be a big brick wall for us to try to get through with our attackers. We have a lot of 4-power attackers, but the Root Walls will not be able to get through a Spire Golem. Second Preordain also goes bottom and top. And let's see if we can kill this Delver of Secrets before it flips. It would be nice if I had 1 more mana available so I could Fiery Temper in response, or Fiery Temper the Delver and Bolt it in response or something, but alright. So now the question is when I want to try to Fiery Temper one of these. fairies. I could wait until after they try to pick one up and ninjutsu in a Ninja of the Deep Hours, but then they could have a counterspell backup and it could all go wrong for me. I could do it on their upkeep and make them spend the mana then, but then they can still do the ninjutsu plan if they have counterspell and a ninja. I could just keep on taking the damage since we're winning the damage race right now and ask them to make the first move. I might also end up needing one of these fiery tempers against the Spire Golem. I would need 5 total mana, but then I could attack, pump a Root Wallet at 3/3, and then fiery temper the Spire Golem so that it dies and my Root Wallet does not. I'm going to keep on making Delver of Secrets my priority since it can get to a 3/2. And since it's untapped, meaning that it might want to try to block one of my Basking Root Wallows. Alright, that one's going to get countered. Tormenting Voice. Alright, that's pretty good. Hopefully this doesn't get countered as well. But like I said before, discarding a card is part of the cost of Tormenting Voice, so if they wanted to counterspell, they could only counter my draw 2 cards or counter my removal spell. They can't do both. Unless they have like 2/4 spikes, but I have the mana to pay for one of them. Alright, they're going to counter the Fiery Temper so they can keep their Delver around. Alright. Now I could play this Evolving Wilds, or I could save it for discard fodder. I've already gone through 2 Tormenting Voices, and Wild Mongrel probably have enough to discard between these Madness spells anyway, so I will definitely trade one of these Root Wallows for a Delver if they let me. Root Wallows are good for keeping up pressure, but if the Delver just flips for free, I could be in trouble. Alright, opponent is drawing to 2 cards in hand. They do not reveal off of Delver. Okay, so they probably just drew Fairy Miscreant, or they'd have played it earlier. They get their card draw. So next turn I can Mongrel plus Worm. If I draw an untapped land, I can Mongrel and then discard Worm and Temper and cast both of them. This is contingent on Mongrel actually resolving. Now it looks like they're going to ninjutsu here. Okay, so they ninjutsu and return Spellstutter Sprite. And with 3 fairies on the table, they can counter spell up to 3 now. So I guess you could say I'm in a lot of trouble. That is one problem with making Delver of Secrets your priority to try to remove, because it does not actually count as a fairy. Alright, so I'm going to attack first, and I'm going to hope that they're not going to try to block. If they do try to block, I don't think I can afford to pump. So see, what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to run out my Mongrel. They're going to try to counter it with Spellstutter, and then I'm going to Fiery Temper one of their fairies. Let me just double check. One, actually, this isn't going to work. The problem is that I can only reduce it down to 2 fairies, so it'll still counter it. What I can do, though, is now that they're tapped out, I can use this opportunity to get rid of Ninja the Deep Hour so they stop drawing. And now I get two Arrogant Worms on my next 2 turns, so I'm still doing okay. If this Delver flips, they're probably going to win the race. If I draw more removal, then I could potentially win the race. We'll have to see. Another Root Wallow would be another Wild Monger would be a great draw, since I can deploy that and Worm in the same turn. Blood Mad Vampire. I don't really want that. I could potentially cast Arrogant Worm in my first main phase and then leave back one of these Root Wallas if it doesn't resolve so that I could try to block Delver Secrets, but that requires a lot of things to happen. That requires Arrogant Worm to be countered and Delver of Secrets not to flip. And if Arrogant Worm is going to be countered, then I'm probably not doing very well anyway. So I kind of need to assume it's going to work. Vapor Snag would be annoying here. Delver flipping would be annoying here. I have lethal next turn if they do nothing. Okay, no I don't because they have a blocker, but I could pump the 2 Root Wallas and attack for 10. Or just pump 1 Root Wall and attack for 8, actually. So if I draw a Lightning Axe... Oh no, they're leaving Delver of Secrets back because of the Arrogant Worm as well. Alright, taking 3. Now we're not quite dead in the air next turn. If the Delver doesn't flip, we're just taking 5. So we don't have to win this turn. Although we might have to if the Delver is flipping. So if I attack with Root Walla here, Spire Golem is certainly going to block it. And then I'm going to have to pay just to keep the Root Walla around. So I think this turn I just attack with an Arrogant Worm. The problem with this is that it doesn't force them to block. Whereas if I had attacked with all of these, then they would have blocked 1 with the Spire Golem, and then maybe 1 with the Delver, or maybe just 1 with the Spire Golem. I'm not sure. I'm going to play out my land here in case of Force Spike. And if they have nothing, we could be okay. And the Delver needs to not flip as well, so let's see what they do. Okay, Delver doesn't flip again. We're getting lucky. Miscreant is drawing a card. 8 points worth of trample should be able to win us this game if they can't do it this turn. Ninja of the Deep Hours is a way they can get an additional point of damage in here. So they could attack for 5, and then after no blocks, ninjutsu in the ninja on one of the 1-power creatures. And now they're Gitaxian probing for mana. So now they know we can't do anything about it if they decide to try that trick. So now we just have to hope they don't have another ninja in hand. Anytime the Mono Blue Delver player is able to pick up a Spell Stutter Sprite with a ninja and hit with a ninja, it's a very difficult game to get through. Because that means they were able to cast a ninja for cheap, draw a card off of it, and immediately cantrip, and then have a Spell Stutter Sprite back in their hand for protection. And sometimes you just can't play around that Spell Stutter Sprite. Like, in our situation, we couldn't wait until we could remove enough fairies. We had to give them a free spell with it. Alright, so they're not attacking with everything, so it appears they do not have the ninja. So I have 8 points worth of trample if I just attack with the worms. And they have 7 points worth of toughness. So they're probably going to put a Spire Golem on an Arrogant Worm. And maybe 1 creature on the other one. Unfortunately, I'm just super dead in the air next turn. They've already seen half of my hand with Gitaxian Probe. So I think the only possible play here I have is to attack with all. And hope that they just put themselves dead on board by attacking. Which I don't think they would have done because they probably knew this turn that I had to attack with all. So they'll probably go block, block, Spire Golem on that. And then block the Trampler with a 1-power thing. And then they take 3. Okay, they're dead on board to this, so I'm not going to activate my Root Wallas yet. I'm going to make them make the first move. Probably Vapor Snag on the unblocked one. Oh, a Snap. Okay. Some let's play Snap, some play Vapor Snag. Well, there we go. Activate this. Although I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't, because the Spire Golem is surviving this combat no matter what I do, which means they have lethal in the air. Alright. I need to not play out my mountain because it's the only card they don't know about. I can play out the Blood Mad Vampire and then pretend that I have a Lightning Bolt or a Lightning Axe or something. They're going to attack me for the win anyway, but maybe they don't for some strange reason. Alright, here they come. Well, that was a close game. Very close. But their bounce spell got the better of us. Okay, let's sideboard. So the good news is we have some really good cards against them. We get to bring in 3 Lightning Blast and 2 Electrickery. I want to keep in all my threats. Against counterspell decks, I don't like these cards as much. Because with Tormenting Voice, they can counter it, and I've already discarded my card, so it's like they get a 2-for-1. And with Faithless Looting, they can just let it resolve, because it's actually card disadvantage, it's card selection. So, unless I'm able to specifically cast something with Madness off of the discard trigger. So they can just ignore this. This is a spell that they don't have to counter. And then they can save their counter magic for the business spells that we cast afterwards. So these are very nice. They keep the deck moving smoothly in games 1, but they're generally the first things to come out in the later games because I need all of my creatures and all my removal most of the time. And I'm also going to cut a 1 of Blood Mad Vampire. They just do not match up well against my opponent's 1-toughness creatures, having a 3-drop that trades with all of their 1-drops. So I'm going to keep some of them in, but I'll get rid of 1. And we'll submit this. Alright, we get to be on the play. Let's see if we can get an aggressive hand. Well, we have an Electrickery, and we have a Mongrel with 2 Madness spells, so this is perfect. So I have a couple options here. I can lead on Untapped Mountain, so I can Electrickery 1 thing. I can lead on Root Walla. The problem with leading on Root Walla is then if I cast Mongrel on 2 and I don't draw any more lands, then I'll have a tap land on 3, and I won't be able to cast Arrogant Worm immediately. But I think it's worth it to be able to get my beat down on, so I'm going to start with Root Walla, I believe. Electrickery I'm going to try to get at least 2 creatures with before I fire it off. However, if they just run a Delver of Secrets out on turn 1, I might just kill it, since I'd be getting to kill it before it has the potential to flip. Alrighty. Let's start with the Root Walla. Okay, there's the Delver of Secrets. So I'm probably just going to have to Electrickery that. Let's see what I draw, though. The problem is that if it flips, then all of a sudden it doesn't die to Electrickery. And if it doesn't flip, then they could put in a Ninja of the Deep Hours off of it on turn 2, and I don't have any removal for that. So I'd have to stay back and try to block the Ninja, and it wouldn't work out well for me. I could try to be greedy and have it not flip and then play more 1-toughness things here, and then they still aren't able to counter Electrickery somehow, but that seems like a stretch. Alright, they have to have Counterspell here. Spellstutter Sprite is not enough to counter a 2-drop. Alright, they do counter it. But next turn, if I draw untapped land, I can Lightning Axe the Worm out. So let's try for that. Spire Golem, and I have the perfect target for Lightning Axe now. Alrighty, here we go. Do this all main phase so that I'm able to attack, and so that they can't counter it since they are tapped out. Now we get a board state. They're left with only 4 cards in hand. And I'm not sure exactly what they run in their sideboard. Sometimes they run Curse of Chains in these Mono-Blue Delver lists, but typically they don't have much hard removal, so they probably can just lose to this Arrogant Worm since they have no creatures on board to try to race us with. So they're probably going to try to snap this back to my hand and counter it on the way down. That's going to be their game plan, most likely. Since I'm attacking for 7 a turn, we got a quick clock on them. Alright, there's a Gush, so they're probably digging for a snap right now. Ninja of the Deep Hours hardcast, okay. Well, this is exceedingly awkward. I want to get my beat down on, but I also don't want them to draw cards. And if I leave back only one card, they could easily have a snap, and then I've wasted the damage. So if they have a snap, I should either attack with both or leave back both. I have 2 lands in my hand, and they just gushed, so they have plenty of cards in their hand. They're going to get to develop their board, probably have counter magic. The long game does not favor me. However, the short game is not going to favor me either if I just let them draw cards for free off this ninja. I think I'm just going to go full YOLO and attack as much as I can. I'm not sure this is correct, but I just feel like I'm going to get too blown out by leaving one thing back and then snapping it. Whereas I could maybe potentially win through a snap if I do it this way. And I'm definitely not leaving them both back because I'm not winning this long game. So I'm just going to press the advantage that I have. And then if they don't draw a snap, then it doesn't really matter how many cards they draw because it's mostly 1 toughness things that can't profitably block my creatures. And counter spells that don't matter when my threats are already on the board. Are they taking? Yep, they're taking another 7. Okay. Play this out in case of miscalculation, I believe is the card that counters for 2. Usually you want to keep your extra lands in hand in case you draw Faithless or Tormented Voice, but first of all we sideboarded those out, and second of all they have a lot of Mana Leak, Force Spike type things. Possibly also miscalculation in the deck, so you want to be careful about not running into those if you don't have to. Alright, they just play out a Spell Stutter for no value. Looking very good for us right now. Alright, and they don't even attack. Excellent. So now we have 3 lethal threats because Wild Mongrel can discard whatever card I draw. So let's see what they do. Probably Ninja on Mongrel, Spell Stutter on something, and snap something else. That's one way for them to survive. Alright, they're gushing, digging for a snap most likely. Alright, we got a little bit lucky there that they drew quite a few cards and couldn't find a snap, but we could have potentially overcome a snap anyway. Alright, on to game 3. Alright, we have to be on the draw for this last game, but we might be able to do it anyway. Well, we have 2 Pyroblasts. Our mana is awkward, but I'm going to keep this. The dream would be Neonate on 1, Blood Mad Vampire on 2, and then being able to Pyroblast a couple things in a row to beat down with the Vampire. They choose to shuffle with this Ponder. Alright, pretty sure resolving the Neonate as early as possible has got to be the right play. It would be nice to be able to correct this Evolving Wilds as well, but I might just draw an untapped land, so. Alright, they're just passing. Electricity too, 3 of our sideboard cards. Well, if we can draw 1 more land, I'm feeling really good about this game. Go find myself a green source. Oh, well, that's not a land. On their end step, if they do absolutely nothing again, I could try to cast this Blood Mad Vampire or the Root Walla, and I could dig a little bit farther by drawing with this Neonate. The upside to casting Vampire is it beats down a lot faster. The upside to casting Root Walla is it lets me leave Pyroblast open so they can't Spell Stutter my spell. Although I guess they can't Spell Stutter Blood Mad anyway. It'd be more protection against Counterspell. I could also just wait. Worst case scenario, I have to discard a hand size, and I could discard like a Mandrill since I'm not too terribly close to casting it. I think I'm just going to wait. Oh good, I drew a land. Alright, they want to play a spell stutter for no value. Presumably to be able to get a ninja onto the table. So I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to let this resolve. I'm going to go to their upkeep, and then I'm going to let Trickery it. I don't want them to wait and then be able to try to put in the ninja, and then us try to do something and then us beat that. I'm going to make them use their counterspell right now. And that way, if they also want to try to pick it up with ninja this turn, then they're going to be tapped out so that I can go kill the ninja with a Pyroblast. Alright, they have the second spell stutter. Now here comes the ninja, presumably? No, okay. Lightning Bolt is a fine draw. I'm going to try to make them make the first move, if at all possible. Alright, they're going to Gush. I'm going to let that resolve. I'd rather counter an action spell like a Spiral Golem or something. I guess I can't counter a Spiral Golem because it's not blue, but... Alright, what's my best plan here? I really want to resolve this Arrogant Worm so I can start beating down. If I do that, they're almost certainly going to counter it. Then I can untap and try to dig for a Lightning Axe for that Spiral Golem. Or resolve like a Hooting Mandrills or something. I think that's good, because then once they counter the worm, presumably they will, Neonate will be in the graveyard, Worm will be in the graveyard. That's 4 things, and I can cast Mandrills for 2. Alright, so let's do that. It'd be great if I could wait until I had Pyroblast up at the same time, so 4 mana, but I can't wait that long, I don't believe. Alright, there's the counterspell. Go get myself a mountain, should be fine. Evolving Wild, so it's a pretty good draw. Now I get the Mandrills for 1 mana and leave open both Pyroblasts. I'm definitely not casting Root Wall right now. It just gets blocked by the Spiral Golem if that's what they want to do, and it doesn't allow me to leave open Bolt Blast or Blast Blast. And I'd like to be able to fight over a Ninja of the Deep Hours coming in here if possible. Not going to counter the card selection spells or the gushes unless I feel like it's really important. I'd rather just fight over the creatures. They go top and top with Preordain. And then they pass. Alright, take this opportunity to bolt something. If they waste a counterspell protecting a lowly 1/1, that's fine. If they try to snap it, it's fine. Alright, so there's the snap. And I'm going to... Alright, if they have another snap, would I rather be countering the snap or trying to blow up the spell stutter? I don't think it makes a difference, right? They could snap the other spell stutter and recast and counter the Pyroblast either way. So, yeah. Let's go with counter the snap. And if they fight over this, like I said, it means they're tapped out. That's fine. It means I get to resolve something on my turn. Although I guess the spell stutter's coming back. This is why Snap is better than Vapor Snag. Vapor Snag is great for a little bit of extra damage, and it's a little bit cheaper up front. But Snap means you always have that spell stutter available that you just picked up, so. Luckily for me, though, I still have a Pyroblast left. Probably going to cast this Blood Mad Vampire off of the Neonate. Okay. They did not take the bait there and try to counter this. They probably thought I had something. Okay, now that means I get to resolve this one. And now they don't have enough fairies even if they wanted to. So now they know I can't go removal spell in response because I only have 1 mana up. But alright, let's Pyroblast this, I believe. Pyroblast is a lot worse if I wait till their turn because they probably have more counter magic. They at least have the spell stutter, so I'm going to try to do this now. And it means they could just leave back a spell stutter to try to block this Blood Mad, but at least it means it's resolving. Alright. So they have spell stutter and some unknowns in hand. And we can change this Neonate out for a Root Wallet if we desire to. Alright, another Gush. They presumably have another Fairy Miscreant if they're going to do that. Oh, Coral Net. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you discard a card. Alright. Probably worth discarding cards to keep that around. So they have an island and a spell stutter and 2 unknowns in hand. Get to cast this Root Wallet for free. And then I get to bash for a ton of damage. I could attempt to shoot this first before it blocks here, but I think I'm just going to let them do it. In general, you always want them to make the first move so that they're tapped lower and they can't counter your spells back. Additionally, I don't mind keeping Fiery Temper in my hand because it's a really good thing to discard to Coral Net. They go bottom top with this Preordain. Still have a spell stutter in hand. I think that's the only known card at this time. They're just going to pass, okay. The question is where I'm actually going to point this. It's most likely getting countered by the spell stutter sprite. I suppose I'll point it at this one. This means that it can get countered by Snap as well, which is annoying. But the spell stutter is worth a minimum of 3 life here because they're allowed to block the Root Wallet with it. So, okay, there's the counter spell. Rugged Highlands, okay. So if I attack and I pump the Root Wallet, the worst thing that can happen, assuming they don't have a bounce spell, is Root Wallet bounces off the Spire Golem and they take 5. I suppose I could also double block Insolent Neonate if they really wanted to. But they can't really afford to do that. They could chump the Root Wallet, but that lowers their fairy count for the spell stutter in their hand. So yeah, I'm just bashing with all here and seeing what they want to do. If they do have a snap for like Root Wallet after I pump it, that'd be annoying. Because that means they get to snap, put this back in their hand, untap 2 lands, and have the spell stutter available. So if I cast it again, then it just gets cast straight into the spell stutter. Alright, they're taking 5 here. I will go ahead and try to save this since I have nothing else to do with my mana. and just pass the turn, make them make the first moves. Alright, they play the Spell Stutter for no value. And we have lethal from 2 different creatures right now, one of which has trample. Ooh, Electrickery. So how do I want to time this? If they have absolutely nothing in their hand, and I attack, they can Spire Golem on Mandrills, chump Root Wall and take 1. If they have one thing in their hand, let's say 1 bounce spell, so Snap, then me playing Electrickery first is very bad because they can Spell Stutter, or they can Snap a Spell Stutter, replay the Spell Stutter to be able to keep both those creatures. If I let them go first, then they can Snap first, and then I can Electrickery in response. And then the worst thing that happens is I lose the Neonate to the Spire Golem, probably. So yeah, I think I'm just going to bash again. Make them make the first move. They're either going to have to sacrifice some pieces here or take lethal and die. So if they have 2 things in their hand, I might lose. Okay. All right, we won. If they had like a snap and a counterspell or a snap and a snap or something, there's a way that could have gone wrong for us. But looks like they did not have enough. We're able to overcome Mono Blue Delver and get on to match 2.